The FIA announced on June 16th that it is introducing a technical directive with the intention of reducing porpoising in the interests of safety. The bouncing sensation certain cars have been suffering has had a negative impact on the drivers, with Lewis Hamilton in visible pain when struggling to get out of his Mercedes in Azerbaijan last weekend, and Daniel Ricciardo adding that he was not exaggerating, given the pain that he went through himself on the bumpy Baku circuit. Pierre Gasly has also recently spoken out against health concerns of porpoising, stating, "It's not healthy, that's for sure. I've had a physio session before and after every session. That's just because my spinal discs are suffering from it. You have literally no suspension. It just hits going through your spine." He went on, "So that's what we discussed at the driver's briefing and kind of alerted them on this problem, and try to ask them to find solutions to save us from ending up with a cane at 30 years old." Lando Norris said it's up to the teams to sort out the problems themselves, and that it is nothing to complain about, given the teams have the option to increase the ride height of their cars at a cost to overall performance. The FIA has now intervened to address this issue, after conversations with doctors about how the drivers are being impacted by the cars bottoming out at high speeds, and a technical meeting with the teams is due to take place in Canada about how the restrictions will be implemented. The teams themselves will have to make any necessary changes in order to comply with the directive, rather than the FIA offering their own technical solution to the issue. The FIA announced a technical directive on June 16th stating, "Following the 8th round of this year's FIA Formula One World Championship, during which the phenomenon of aerodynamic oscillations, otherwise known as porpoising, of the new generation of Formula One cars and the effect of this during and after the race on the physical condition of the drivers was once again visible. The FIA, as the governing body of the sport, has decided that, in the interest of the safety, it is necessary to intervene to require that the teams make the necessary adjustments to reduce or eliminate this phenomenon." Let's take a look at some porpoising data courtesy of Formula One, and what we're looking at here is a chart that shows the changes the teams have made to their cars over the course of the season, from preseason to the race in Spain where this data was collected. And you can see the before and after line that shows that change. And along the y-axis here, we measured the vertical g-force of the porpoising, the amplitude, and along the x-axis, we measure the frequency here in hertz. If we take a look at Ferrari here, you can see that at preseason, they started off quite high in terms of their porpoising, but over the course of the season, they've managed to lower it quite a bit down to here, and similar to Aston Martin, Williams, McLaren, and Red Bull, they're all along this little cluster here. And what we can see, the trend across the teams is that over the course of the season, they've kind of lowered their amplitude or their porpoising and kind of increased the frequency in this general motion. Now, there are a couple exceptions to this. Most notably here, we see Haas, which actually started off with a pretty decent, pretty low porpoising relative to the other teams, and then over the course of the season, they've actually increased. Another example here, and possibly even in a worse situation, is Alpine. They've also kind of slightly increased their porpoising and frequency as well. One last thing to point out on this chart is Mercedes. And as we can see, they started the season kind of in the middle of the pack, in a kind of an average spot in terms of their porpoising. But over the course of the season up until the Spain race, they've actually reduced their amplitude the most of any team. And they may even have the lowest frequency as well. So the thing to remember here is that all the teams suffer from porpoising to some degree. And it also varies from track to track. And while porpoising is the movement up and down of the car, there's also bottoming out, which is where the car actually makes contact with the track. And each team, regardless of their porpoising amplitude, will have that in varying degrees depending on the setup of their car. And that's where I believe Mercedes is having more issues. Even though their amplitude is less, I think their setup of the vehicle makes it more susceptible to bottoming out. Let's take a look at this last chart here, and this shows the porpoising amplitude of each of the teams side by side so we get a better comparison. And again, on the y-axis we have the vertical g-force and the teams all across, and we can see that Alpine actually has the highest porpoising amplitude of any of the teams, followed by Haas, Ferrari, and then in the middle you got McLaren, Aston Martin, and then on the lower end you got Alfa Romeo, Mercedes, Red Bull. So we can get a sense of where every team is in terms of their porpoising. And so yeah, that's what I wanted to share with you today, and thank you for watching. And if you are not subscribed, please subscribe. We will release videos weekly on F1 tech and news. Thank you.